The scene was one of absolute confusion. Shots were ringing out. The nightmare was unfolding.
Going hunting. Hunting for humans.
Make sure you approach from the south, and the CP is at 300 west. The shooting suspect is inside the McDonald's. He is contained, moving around in there. Still shots being fired.
Well, society had their chance.
He entered the facility, heavily armed, immediately started shooting everybody.
These images are more of war than of a small fast food restaurant in San Ysidro. Yet it was a local man dressed in battle fatigues who declared, "I have killed 1,000 and I'm gonna kill 1,000 more." He reportedly walked into the restaurant carrying a semi-automatic rifle and 2 other weapons, enough ammunition to last 2 hours. He fired through windows, hitting people in the street. He fired at men, women, children, and babies. One officer said it looked like a mass execution. It was all happening so fast. By 4:15, a virtual army of police and rescue personnel had crowded the main street through this border town. No one can explain why anyone would take so many innocent lives. He killed enough to shake a whole country and make this small town wonder if its streets will ever be the same.
Hello and welcome to I Could Murder, a podcast. We are here once again to share with you a brand new case, and I'm joined by the guy in the tracksuit. It's Ben Carter.
Good day to you, Sir Thomas, and good day to you, Sir Daniel. Many wishes to both of you. Thank you so much for having me today. I really appreciate your time and your patience, as always. But yeah, great to be back with another episode, a humdinger, as we have been known to say. How are you, producer Dan?
Yes, very good. Quite warm, actually. I feel like today's quite warm. Maybe the last warm day of the year, perhaps. Maybe not. But I'm very good. Boys, it's out into the ether. It's all over social media. How was it being with red-handed?
Oh, I didn't know where you were going to go there. I was like, what's Ben done now? It was, yes. There's a cheeky little collaboration that's going to emerge very soon, actually, sooner than I thought. We had a lovely time with the Red-Handed crew and Hannah and Saruti in a really very interesting location. Ben, do you want to share a bit about the location we're in?
Yeah, you would have bloody loved it, Dan. The host of the location was a former very famous magician and very involved in the whole thing. And the part of it, with it being a Halloween special, was that we were in fancy dress, and I walked past him and he said I looked like a fucking shit Superman. Very involved.
Oh yeah, I was going to say, what do you mean? Was he always there giving his opinion and stuff, or?
We're going to go more in depth on this with the audio episode when it comes out. We're going to do a bit of behind the scenes. Me and Ben talk through a little bit more, talk through it down with you about the kind of funny goings on all around it.
Right.
But I would just caveat by saying self-confessed famous magician, I'd say, rather than
David Brent of the magician world, perhaps.
But yes, we'll go into that a bit more in depth in and around the episode. But very excited by it. It was lovely meeting the guys. It was a really fun day. And the location, very interesting. So lots to talk about that.
It was very nice to see what a proper true crime podcast looks and feels like.
Oh.
And we had a front row ticket, didn't we, Tom?
Feels like that's been a bit offensive to our podcast.
It was really offensive,
all right.
Actually.
It really was.
We're doing all right.
We are. Anyway, boys, sorry I couldn't be there. I wish I was. I just got snowed under with work. I wanted to shout from the sidelines. And I did. I was shouting from afar. But I can't wait to see the episode, so look out for it.
So we're back with another episode this week. It's the penultimate episode of the series. How quickly has this series gone? Absolutely terrifying. But yes, this case was actually going to be our series finale, but we made a last-minute decision to substitute this case with the audience vote, which we do each series for those that don't know who we are and what we do. And very intrigued to do the audience vote as a series finale with you boys next week. So please join us next week for that. But today is, I'll get it out there early, not to be too much of a Debbie Downer. This case is upsetting.
Benny Downer.
Or a Benny Downer, yes.
Yeah.
I know that guy got annoyed at me on YouTube when I used to look at YouTube comments about saying that I was a wet wipe for getting offended or feeling uneasy at Nazi memorabilia in an antique store in Yorkshire. I mean, I'd rather be uneasy than easy breezy like he was. But yeah, this case, wow, very, very upsetting. It's brought back, in doing the research, it's brought back kind of Sandy Hook vibes, which I know that was a particularly difficult one to get through. And it's the word of the series, preventability. How this all could just not have happened. And yeah, so many things were missed, so many things were not done, which resulted in today's case. Yeah, terrifying one. Sorry, a lot of me from the off, sorry. There we go.
So that was great. That's great, Ben. But Ben, can you get rid of that waffle and just tell us what is today's case?
So today we are here, Series 12, Episode 11, the 1984 San Ysidro McDonald's Massacre, also referred to as the case of James Oliver Huberty, the 1984 San Ysidro McDonald's mass shooting, the McDonald's Massacre, a tragedy that changed America, 77 Minutes, the San Ysidro murders, a visit to McDonald's, the life and crimes of James Huberty, and the San Ysidro McDonald's Massacre. For those that watch us or listen to us chronologically, the cryptic clue for this week's episode was that Jamie Oliver transition. And yeah, in the Discord, they're fighting over the clues at the moment the early access episode drops. And a few people got it because I accidentally left in the additional clue of I'm not loving it. So the McDonald's connection was made. But yeah, Jamie Oliver, James Oliver, transition, puberty, Huberty, James Huberty. So we bow out with an okay one.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think people would have got that without the error of leaving that in. But there you go. We are back once again, and we're going to dive into this case right away. Producer Dan, can you set the scene?
Yes. July 18th, 1984, San Ysidro, San Diego, California. It was just a normal Wednesday afternoon, like thousands of those before it, as the clock approached 4 p.m. on the 18th of July, 1984. A popular McDonald's that sat in the heart of the San Ysidro neighbourhood was extremely busy, as it usually was. It had been a particularly hot summer's day, and customers, many of whom were teenagers or families with young children, had been coming in and out of the restaurant in order to buy ice-cold colas, milkshakes, and freshly poured ice cream in a bid to beat the heat. Those inside the McDonald's were chatting over burgers and fries with their friends and family, enjoying a brief escape from the scorching sun, blissfully unaware of the danger that was slowly creeping towards them. No one inside the restaurant knew that within minutes, their entire world would be turned upside down. 41-year-old James Oliver Huberty had lived a life of quiet unravelling, numerous failed jobs, fractured relationships, an array of mental health conditions, and a growing private rage against a society he deemed to have constantly rejected him. Behind closed doors, he began collecting a range of weapons, including pistols, a shotgun, and an Uzi, and started making sinister plans. Plans of which would transform an ordinary summer afternoon into hell on earth for those unfortunate enough to be caught in his path. As the customers ate their meals and the staff continued working their shifts, no one could have predicted that, over the course of the next 77 minutes, the building would be encircled by police. A multitude of customers would suffer serious, life-changing injuries, and many others, predominantly young children, would be fatally shot. All while the man responsible for this chaos lay on the floor, lifeless from a sniper's bullet. The San Ysidro McDonald's was now, reluctantly, the ghastly scene of America's deadliest mass shooting. And, whilst many had hoped that nothing like this would ever happen again, in the 40 years that would follow, 7 other terrifyingly similar events would take that headline from it.
What led James Oliver Huberty, a relatively unassuming middle-aged welder, to open fire on dozens of innocent young families inside a local McDonald's restaurant? When, after a pattern of repeated concerning behaviours and numerous red flags, should family members, mental health professionals, or law enforcement have intervened with him? Why were so many of the victims children, and what did this say about the killer's motives or state of mind? And how significantly did the San Ysidro McDonald's massacre resonate across American culture eventually becoming a grim turning point in mass shooting history.
So as usual, we're going to give a little bit of background, and in this case, an extremely alarming background on the perpetrator, and go into the highly disturbing timeline of the case.
James Oliver Huberty, who was nicknamed Young Jimmy by his family, was born on the 11th of October 1942 in the city of Canton, which is located in Stark County, Ohio. The city was once known as Little Chicago. Can't really do the Chicago sort of gangster accent.
Chicago.
It's Chicago,
Windy
baby.
City.
Tom can do a good one.
All right.
I generally can't.
Sorry, I need to quit blowing smoke up my ace.
Ooh. I wish I could.
You liar. Anyway, Little Chicago. That
Little
was its
Windy.
name. Little Windy, yeah, Little Winder. They called it this because as back in the late 1800s and early 1900s, it was often second home to a large number of top gangsters, not top G's like today's society, and also members of the mafia. And this was particularly during the Prohibition era. Some even state that the big man Al Capone had a small residence in the city at one point in time. Since then, it has become known as the Hall of Fame City due to its long-standing association with and home to the American Football Hall of Fame. Unsurprisingly, James Oliver Huberty wasn't the only person ever born in Canton. I try to say goodbye and I choke. Singer Macy Gray was born there, and so too was Marilyn Manson, a musically city.
Yep, a musically city.
Yeah.
Yes,
Definitely.
musically city.
Yeah.
Another native to the area was serial killer and human hunter, which is terrifyingly appropriate for this week's case, Thomas Dillion, who had the extravagant nickname of Killer. And another little one here for you, Tom, and a band we enjoyed as teenagers, Reliant K, were from Canton.
There you go. Christian rock band.
Yeah, they were a bit Christian, weren't they?
No, definitely
a lot,
Christian rock
a lot
band,
Christian. Yeah, wow.
100%.
Huberty was the youngest of two children born to Earl Vincent and Issel. I mean, it's written down I-C-L-E, Ickle, Issel. But apparently it's Issel. Issel Evelyn Huberty. He had a sister called Ruth who was 4 years older than him. Huberty's father, Earl, who was described as, like so many fathers of the time, an incredibly hard-working, incredibly strict disciplinarian. He would work extensive hours as a quality inspector at the local steel mills, whilst also having dreams of one day owning his own farm. His mother, Issel, was a homemaker who spent a great deal of time raising her children and also going to the local church. The Huberty family were regular attendees of their local United Methodist Church, and they had hopes that from an early age their son would heavily embrace religion and perhaps even go on to attend a local divinity school. This was a hope that his mother held particularly close to her heart.
So a young Huberty, and this is how Ben has written this, in true Forrest Gump fashion, was forced to wear a large custom-made leather and metal leg braces on each of his legs after contracting polio when he was just 3 years old.
Terrible, isn't it?
Yes,
Well,
yes.
some
it's
people
mean.
could say things like that.
For sure. His father, Earl, would recall, his whole nervous system was hurt by it. It screwed him up. It made changes in him when he was little. From here, he would get quick-tempered an awful lot. Very unlike Forrest Gump, who was, if anything, never.
Mild-mannered.
Jenny.
Oh,
Beat me to it.
pretty good though, yours.
Thanks.
Fortunately for Huberty, he was able to overcome his battle with this disease relatively quickly. However, he would walk with a slight but very distinctive limp for the rest of his life.
Kids could be so cruel.
Yeah, well, you're the cruel and saying he's fucking Forrest Gump. It was also suggested that though he had made a significant recovery from polio, his affliction may have left him in physical pain and discomfort for many decades that followed. Following on from this, in the summer of 1950, when Huberty was just 7 years old, his father made the decision to purchase a 155-acre piece of farmland, which was located in the village of Mount Eaton, Ohio. Other reports state that this piece of land was in rural Pennsylvania. But either way, the key theme for both locations was that it was extremely rural. The purchase caught the rest of the family by surprise, and that it was also part of the Amish country.
Just immediately thinking of those videos where about 70 Amish people build a barn in a day. You know, before the sun goes down. Crazy work. Big barn as well, huge.
There you go.
Thank you.
Old-fashioned tools as well, no machinery.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Well, just an honest pint of milk and a hard day's work.
Yep.
So this is where things get slightly problematic. And it's not exactly clear how much Earl had told Issel about this farmland purchase, or if the pair had even discussed the idea of suddenly moving the young family out of the city and into a remote farming village. Either way, Issel outright refused to move to the countryside with Earl and their 2 children, and wouldn't even attend a viewing of the property, when her husband pleaded with her to do so. Not long after this, to her children's shock, Issel abandoned her family and moved to the city of Tucson, Arizona, in order to follow her calling. Here, she initially struggled to obtain consistent employment or living conditions and quickly ended up becoming a member of the local Pentecostal church, for which she would become a full-time sidewalk preacher.
Oh.
It's quite the calling, eh, Ben?
Yeah. The calling, the preachers. I'd go to that festival.
A small festival, maybe just a gig. A whole weekend of that would be a bit samey. After overcoming polio at such a young age, Huberty's new obstacle in life was a growing sense of abandonment he felt towards his mother. This would impact the young boy so badly and so often that his father would regularly find him as follows.
Slumped up against or sitting inside the family chicken coop, sobbing for hours on end. He was embittered by his mum leaving, and he blamed God for taking his mother away.
It's finding it hard to coop.
Fair play. That's good.
The move to the countryside, together with his mother's relocation, seemed to have had a huge impact on young Jimmy, as his father fondly called him, and his childhood, from this point onwards, certainly did not seem to be a happy one. Living in such a remote area caused him to have very limited options in terms of making friends, and it is argued that, even if he was surrounded by neighbourhoods full of children similar to his age, he was such an antisocial personality and such a shy young boy that he wouldn't have even tried to befriend others. To compensate for this, from a very early age, his father introduced sons to gun.
Son. Gun.
Fuck's sake. His father introduced his son to guns, hoping that he could pass his passion down the generations, and that the pair could build a bond and spend some quality time together. He taught his son how to shoot, clean, and maintain weapons, and would eventually start taking him hunting in rural areas surrounding the farmland they now lived on. From this moment onwards, he spent all of his spare time shooting targets on the family farm, with one family friend describing him as a queer little boy who practiced incessantly with a target pistol. A lady by the name of Bertha Eggman, who lived just down the road from the Huberty family farm, recalled the following about the young boy. Jimmy was a loner, not a bad boy, but someone who spent most of his time by himself or playing with guns. He was always a shooting guy. He'd shoot 5 heads of cabbage and then pick one from the ground. He did not want to mix, he did not want to talk to people. He had a very unhappy childhood. He was very sad. He came from a broken home. He was always very sad and very lonely. His only close friend was his dog, Shep. Huberty attended the nearest high school available to him, which, at the time, was Waynedale High in the nearby village of Apple Creek, Ohio. Here, he was apparently bullied relentlessly regarding his limp, his appearance, the fact he wore thick-framed glasses, his social awkwardness, and his family's extreme religious beliefs. He was described by teachers as a plain, average, and particularly quiet student, who ended up graduating in 1960, where he was ranked 51st out of a class of 70 young boys and girls. When he graduated, he was so unnoticed that, years later, when former classmates were asked about him, no one could recall anything. It was as if he had never been at the school. At around this time, his father met and married a younger woman who had children of her own from a previous marriage. This young lady worked as a school teacher and was well liked in the community, but Huberty was said to have despised this individual and would often act out around her and attempt to intimidate her. One neighbour recalled,
He just didn't get along with her. Whenever he came home from school or work, he'd get out of his car and fire off 10 to 12 shots by the house to warn them that he was coming in. He had real inner conflicts. You always felt a little uneasy around him. He was pent up, he was a loner, and he had a kind of explosive personality. When you talked to him, you knew he had a nervous anxiety and was wound up inside.
Yeah, that would be pretty scary. Someone that has to announce, instead of, honey, I'm home, just letting off a variety of bullets, just shooting the sky. Or the ground. Or cabbages. You can do it all. But yeah, not a very happy home life at this point. Obviously, the impact of polio seemed to stay with him after his recovery. He blames his mother and religion for his mother abandoning him, bullied relentlessly at school, spending all of his spare time on guns. Yeah, not a very happy young man at this point, and it's only going to get worse.
Fantastic.
Not long after graduating, Huberty enrolled at Malone University, and this was a private Christian university located back in his birth city of Canton. Here he chose to study sociology, however he grew disinterested in the subject within just a few months. One thing that he didn't grow disinterested in or with at the university was a young lady and a substitute teacher by the name of Etna Markland. He worked up the confidence to talk to her. The pair struck up a bond and soon entered a relationship, eventually getting married in the spring of 1965. And yeah, there's going to be a divisive character is Etna. There'll be a whole lot more on her shortly. From here, it wouldn't be long before Huberty noticed that a local mortuary in Canton was hiring, and the idea of working there intrigued him. He then enrolled to study at the Pittsburgh Institute of Mortuary Science, from which he later obtained his funeral director's and embalmer's license by the age of 22. Instead of taking up work on the family farm, which had been his father's hope, and instead of heading into a career in religion, which had very much been his mother's hope prior to her abandoning the family, Huberty started working as an intern embalmer at Don Williams' funeral home in the city of Canton. Here he was described as an extremely diligent embalmer who stayed in this role for almost 2 years. However, there were apparently numerous times when he behaved inappropriately towards a large number of mourners who were attending services at the home. And he wouldn't just draw complaints from them, he would also get many complaints from his superiors. And this is why. After a service, the grieving friends and family members of the deceased would sometimes need, as is completely understandable, an extra moment or two to collect themselves. Apparently, any time that this happened, it really, really frustrated Huberty, who wanted everyone to leave the building immediately after the service had ended. Sometimes you get waiters like that. You know, if you're the last booking, I don't do it often.
Trying to be too efficient.
Get out, kitchen's off, go on, clear off you. But this is a funeral home.
Yeah.
So yeah, he wouldn't allow people time to pay their respects and collect themselves, compose themselves. He was described as lacking the necessary calmness, people skills, and empathy, often appearing quite heartless to others. He would apparently pace back and forth the service room immediately after the funerals were finished, loudly muttering under his breath, "Get out! Get out!" Is that loudly muttering under my breath? Get out! Get out!
Get out! Get out!
Sounds like you just said, "Get a shitty partridge."
Get out! Get out! Get out!
Get out!
Get
Yeah.
out!
And apparently, if that somehow didn't, make the message clear, he would then make the bold decision to turn off all the lights and wait for people to leave. No patience, no empathy, and just not a fan of people. After this had happened on more than one occasion, despite numerous warnings, Huberty was asked to step down from his role, which he did so before quickly taking up a trainee welder's position at a utility plant in the nearby city of Louisville, Ohio. On this particular career change, the funeral home's owner, Don Williams, stated the following.
He simply wasn't cut out for this profession. He acted like he just wanted to be left alone. I told him he was in the wrong business. He was a good embalmer, but he just didn't relate to people. That's why I thought he was better off as a welder. He could just pull that mask down and be by himself.
That's fair play from
Makes sense.
From Don.
Yeah.
Fair play.
You won't be interrupting, or you don't really hear much, are you, when you're hiding away, I would have thought.
I kind of feel the same way when I put my helmet on. Just me
Shutting the world off.
on the roads, shutting the world
You
off.
drive like no one else is using the roads. I wish you'd take a bit more care.
No, it's not true.
So Huberty would work as a welder for 2 different companies over the next 15 years. This first one where he trained up, he would just stay there for a couple of years, and then he would leverage that position for a better salary at another company where he would spend the next 13 years. He would very much keep himself to himself in these roles and was considered a great solid worker by his employers, always getting the job done to a high standard and always being open to working overtime. And apparently, just helmet on, mask down, the welding machine in hand.
Welding machine. Yeah.
The welding machine, making all the joints and bending things and really good with that welder's torch in hand. This seemingly impressive work ethic would earn him multiple promotions over the years, and by the time that he reached his mid-30s, he was earning between $146,000 and $175,000 a year in today's money.
Oh.
So he's doing quite well for himself at our age.
Quite weld from... Well done.
well.
Well done. Well
Yep.
done.
Fuck.
Very, very good. During this time, he became a father to 2 baby girls, and this was Zelia and Cassandra. And he and Etna had now settled into a spacious 3-story red brick home located in a middle-class neighborhood at 107 6th Street Northeast in the city of Massillon, Ohio. Or is that Massillon?
Well,
Massillon. We're going to go with Massillon.
Maislan.
Come and get me. But all was seeming well in their worlds for the first few years. However, in the winter of 1971, the house suddenly burned to the ground in a fire. Fortunately, none of the family were in the home at the time of the fire, and they were able to purchase another house on the same street just a few weeks later in order to make do. So that's quite handy. Once the insurance had paid out, the couple built a large shared house on the grounds of their old home, which they then converted into 6 separate apartments that they started renting out. So good business minds, this couple here. At this point, they appeared to be the perfect all-American family, with Huberty taking up the appearance of a diligent family man. But beneath the surface, things were not at all as they appeared to be.
Behind closed doors and even occasionally out at public gatherings, Huberty turned into a completely different person now that he had a well-paid job and was the main breadwinner of the household. He immediately made his new neighbours nervous by building a large makeshift firing range in the basement of his new home, where neighbours would allegedly continue to hear gunshots emanating from late into the night. That is terrifying.
That would piss you off. One night of that and you're having words, I think.
I'm trying to think what would be more annoying, that or a squash court. Probably that.
Probably the guns.
Squash court, that'd be annoying. That we used to play squash, we hit it hard. Some of those shots, mate.
We fucking hit it well hard, boy. Yeah.
Got to warm the ball up first, haven't you, to get going?
Oh, mate.
Yeah.
2-player game, innit?
Squash.
Apparently, when he had a sleepless night, he would, to the bemusement of his family and neighbours, head down to the basement to fire off some rounds. Huberty would also regularly verbally and physically abuse his wife and his 2 young daughters in and out of the family home. He would punch them, slap them, kick them, choke them, and even, on occasion, hold knives to their throats. One evening, he beat his wife Edna so badly that she feared for her life and decided to file a report with the Canton Department of Children and Family Services, in which she stated that her husband had messed up her jaw. Despite repeated visits from social services and even the police, as is the same with so many cases that we have covered, no further action was taken.
It's bad, isn't it?
Yeah, that is bad, Ben. Violence against women and kids.
Violence against women and children, and a noise complaint, a repeated noise complaint. It's awful, all awful.
It is alleged that Huberty wasn't the only aggressor in the household. Etna also had violent tendencies and was, like her husband, occasionally unpredictable with her behaviours. At a birthday party for one of her young daughter's friends, Etna boldly encouraged Zelia, who was believed to be between 4 and 6 years old at this point, to hit a classmate who had annoyed her. Yeah, can't imagine that happening.
Bad parenting, that.
Yeah, definitely, man.
Yeah.
You usually just got told, just, Ben, it's a 4 to 6 year old birthday party, can you put it away? Because you always get a colouring book out. And you also just had these big pictures of penises on them. As if this wasn't bad enough, Etna then later publicly threatened the same classmate's mother with a 9mm pistol. This was quickly reported to the police and Etna was subsequently arrested for the act, but the pistol wasn't confiscated from her, and she was quickly released on bail. I mean, this is wild. Meanwhile, back at the family home, Huberty would publicly threaten numerous dog walkers who ever allowed their dogs to walk or even briefly stand on his lawn. And he would also warn his neighbour that he would shoot all of their dogs if they ever allowed them to defecate in his garden. He then placed numerous no trespassing signs on his lawn and also purchased the first of a series of German Shepherd guard dogs. I mean, he says he doesn't want dog shit in his garden, and then he's buying numerous. On one occasion, a neighbour complained to Huberty that his dog had either chewed a piece of his car's mud flap or scratched it in some way. Huberty apologised, went and got the dog, brought it out to the garden, and shot it dead. Yeah. Truly horrific.
Oh.
Yeah. I thought I'd be right, and luckily I was right. But Googling is Mount Etna volcanic. Can it erupt? And just like Etna Huberty's temper, it can erupt sometimes. But then the dog thing happened, and I got a bit gutted. A lot gutted.
I've been to Mount Etna.
Oh.
Yeah, visited there. Actually got a hoodie over there, which is...
Nice, man. Nice.
Brilliant. The neighbour was, understandably, so incredibly distraught and shocked about this incident that they were only able to blurt out, "There was no need for that." Huberty simply smiled and responded with, "I believe in paying my debts, both good and bad." News of this incident started to spread about the neighbourhood, and many living on the street would now cross the road rather than risk walking past the Huberty family home. Additional rumours started to spread around town about people seeing Huberty wearing only his dressing gown, pacing around on his porch, holding what appeared to be a rifle or a shotgun, before pointing it towards them, laughing hysterically, and going back inside the house.
I'm calling the police if I see that. And the dog thing, and the gun range in the basement, and the abuse of his wife and children. Call the police.
Well, they've been there and they've done nothing about it then.
Mad. Maddening.
Despite all of this, very few reports were made to the police.
Come on.
If only Ben was there.
Thank you. I probably wouldn't have done anything.
I can't see you doing a lot.
Remember the Dominoes?
Oh, fucking hell, yeah.
Oh, that'd be different.
2 hours late.
Different situation.
Give them a second chance, Dan. I'm sure they're trying their best. Ben, some of the pizzas haven't arrived. Oh, that's all right.
I hate complaining. Proper ones.
The only reports that were made were noise complaints about the German Shepherds that Huberty would own, as well as noise complaints about the sounds of gunfire coming from his basement. Massacre Police Department reported that, though they knew the family extremely well due to repeated run-ins with them, Huberty was only ever charged in 1980 for drunk and disorderly following an incident at a local petrol station. He did not receive a fine for this incident and was only required to pay $46 in court costs. The entire time, he was deemed by neighbours to be a quiet but hot-headed loner. In the years that followed, Huberty grew into a deeply unhappy, angry, anxious, violent and paranoid individual. He started to distance himself from his wife and daughters, spending more and more time at work. Whenever he was at home, it would only take the smallest thing to set him off on one of his furious tirades. He would regularly assault his female family members, who constantly lived in fear of him. To combat his foul moods and abusive behaviours towards her and her daughters, Etna tried to convince her husband to go to counselling sessions, but he would refuse any kind of treatment. Thinking outside the box, Etna then made the decision to try and implement a calming mechanism into their relationship, and this came from the unique form of tarot card reading.
Ooh, I'm intrigued.
We had one of them at our Halloween party.
That was, honestly, Dan, one of the best looking Halloween parties I've ever been to.
Oh, thanks.
Felt like a different world.
It did, didn't it?
It was really well. I didn't actually get a reading, though, personally. It was very popular in the evening, so I didn't have a chance.
Actually genuinely ended up having a queue outside the door, so I didn't either.
And the readings happened in your studio there?
Bit of Boston Sound.
Yeah, in Boston Sound.
Ben, did you have a reading?
Some people came out crying.
Some people did, yeah. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
Fuck.
Yeah.
No, I didn't get one either, Tom. I was good. Like, sort of took Titanic principle on it and women and children first, and I waited and never got one. So I'd have gone down with the ship in terms of the tarot readings. But I did hear she was good. Dan, the lady that did the readings. Did hear she was good. I said hello to her got a good vibe, so maybe I'm okay.
I would put all the kids in women first. Otherwise, I'll be in there, right in there. Actually, thank you so much. What's your name again? All right. Fair enough. Is that Crystal Ball? Is it? You glad to see me? All right. See you later.
We talked about it quite a lot. I think we might have even ended up talking about it on the red-handed thing, but my obsession with the Titanic, I found a guy on YouTube that plays a VR game that puts you in the not the Titan submersible, but a submersible, and you start at the bottom of the ocean, and it gives you the view of a submersible approaching the Titanic wreck. Then you do the story of being on the Titanic the night that it hit the iceberg, and it looked terrifying. The guy started crying. It was a very famous guy that was playing it, Irish gamer guy. Jacksepticeye.
Oh, yeah.
He was playing it. Got very upset.
I'd like to do that, actually. VR's getting crazy good.
Well, there you go, man. But yeah, no tarot card reading, sorry.
How did that get to fucking Titanic?
I don't know. I went down with a ship. Sorry.
Down my estimations.
Okay.
Edna would sit down with her husband and claim that certain cards meant certain things relating to his future whilst doing his readings. These would all have uniquely positive actions or outcomes, predominantly leading him to goals that gave him more money and success. And Huberty would often follow the advice given in these readings. However, it would only provide a temporary solace from his violent mood swings and paranoid thoughts.
Interesting technique, which I'm very surprised worked. To be honest, he sounds like a kind of guy that wouldn't at all buy into that.
I wonder if it's because he seemed, in his childhood, quite religious, spiritual guy, believed in a lot of things his parents told him. Maybe it did work initially. Like, if I'm just trying to think of what she might do in a situation like that. You know, James, Jimmy, you must do this. You know, if you do this in life, if you're a good person, then money, you know, good things will happen to you. It's just one example.
The readings are quite vague, aren't they? It's kind of this thing's entering your life, which also could mean this and this and this. And it is, yeah. Unless she really was tailoring them to him, and going, oh, this one says you shouldn't be outside in your dressing gown, walking around with a shotgun. But yeah, I'm surprised. It's fair play to her for thinking of it. But
yeah, it's a good idea. During the late 1970s, as we actually saw in the previous 2 episodes we've covered here on podcast, Randy Weaver and Leonard Lake, James Huberty became absolutely convinced that a nuclear war was on the verge of breaking out, and that there was a good chance that the world was going to end. He also believed that all bankers in the country were corrupt, and that the United States was slowly being bankrupted by a new wave of quote-unquote foreign investors. As a result, he began to stockpile an array of weapons as well as non-perishable foods and supplies. He stored whatever savings he had in cash under the floorboards of the house, which is a bold move if your last house burned down. Very bold. And he also trained both of his daughters in kung fu and karate, urging them to try and reach the level of black belt. Which is that's just karate, isn't it? I don't think you get belts in kung fu. Doesn't matter. I don't know either. He also became fully immersed in different conspiracy theories and started consuming a huge amount of survivalist content. He would eventually hold the belief that 2 US presidents, Jimmy Carter and Ronald Reagan, were both conspiring against him and his family specifically. He told colleagues that his house was, quote, ready for the defense of any kind of apocalypse, whilst repeatedly telling others that he would have no problem taking other people out if it meant saving him and his family. According to a former colleague, Terry Kelly,
he felt the country wasn't treating him right, and that everything was being done against working people. He was always talking about shooting somebody for it, and that wouldn't have been hard. No matter where he was sitting or standing in his home, he could always just reach over and grab a gun from somewhere.
Well, he's thinking that people like Jimmy Carter and Ronald Reagan are going to have an interest in a welder in Ohio. It just seems like, a delusion of grandeur, even, with that, really. But yeah, very concerning when you mix difficulties with mental health and with mass ownership of weapons.
Yes, very much so. And this just getting it in the ear, Kung Fu doesn't have a universal belt system. So there you go.
Universal, but what about like global?
But it does have a belt system anyway. Because
sashes, not belts.
Oh.
They use sashes.
Sashes.
In traditional Chinese martial arts, a single black sash was the only common uniform with higher ranked individuals. So it's still black the higher you go. Very difficult upbringing. Lots of highly problematic upbringing, and now there are introduced elements of paranoia and a lot of different mental health conditions and violence and gun ownership, as Tom said, which is, it's going to continually escalate now. In the winter of 1982, after more than 12 years with the company, 40-year-old Huberty was laid off from his welding job at the Babcock and Wilcox Welding Company. This incident seemed to serve as very much a tipping point in Huberty's already extremely volatile and unstable life.
Cock and Cox let him go.
They did. They said, "Get out of here, Huberty."
Yeah, we're going to know you're having a hard time in here. You got a stiff neck, but we're going to have to get you out of the door. You're no longer welcome at Cock and Cox. You're ejected.
And eject him they did. But apparently great number of redundancies. Unfortunately, always a tragedy. So this is huge, this moment at Babcock and Wilcox Welding Company. This is huge. As a result of this news, being let go after 12 years here, he soon started to experience suicidal thoughts when faced with the idea of not being able to provide for his family. And he is said to have told one co-worker, probably former co-worker now, "If this is the end of my ability to make a living for my family, I am going to kill myself and take everyone with me." Which, I mean, that co-worker could have come out and said this after the fact. I'm guessing that's where the quote would have come from rather than before. But yes, very, very alarming. Once again, this matter was not reported to the police. Shortly after he became unemployed, it is reported that Aetna prevented at least one suicide attempt from Huberty, who would regularly hold a gun to his head in front of his wife. He also told his wife that he had started, quote, hearing voices urging him to end his life at around the same time. Some of these voices were apparently spoken to him with a thick German accent. So as a result of this, he started to tell locals that he himself was a German war criminal who had immigrated to the country, though many people obviously refused to believe this, predominantly due to him himself having a very thick American accent. Yeah.
Do it now. That's not German.
That's Arnold, isn't it? Arnie.
It's a bit Arnold.
Do it now.
Austrian.
Get out of here, get down.
What's a good German? I want to put it down.
Yeah, Dan.
I can't do a German accent.
You can and you have.
You have.
Loads.
I can't.
No, I can't.
It's the roots. It's the roots.
Might come out later.
No.
Just weeks after losing his job, Huberty and one of his daughters were hurt in, well, it's either a car or a motorbike accident, a road vehicle accident. And though they both survived, in the weeks following this incident, Huberty observed that what was once a mild neck pain, which he apparently had suffered with since he had polio as a very young child, this condition had suddenly worsened. He also noticed a growing nerve tremor in his hands and arms that happened occasionally, eventually becoming uncontrollable. He still walked with a slight limp, and now his right hand would twitch uncontrollably. This meant that returning to work in the well-paid role of a welder was now an unlikely option for him. Worried about their financial circumstances, the couple sold their 6-apartment shared house for $115,000, whilst Huberty boldly decided to take on a new role as a welder at another plant. Unfortunately for him and the family, this plant also shut down, and he was soon without work once again. Or at least that's what the company told him. The couple also sold their other home in Massacre for just $12,000, with the buyers taking on the remaining Huberty family mortgage of the property. This agreement would somehow backfire and place the couple into an additional $69,000 worth of debt, which again only exacerbated their already negative financial situation. Now, in much more challenging circumstances, the family made the bold decision to move to Tijuana, Mexico, as they felt that their savings would last a lot longer south of the border than they would in the US. In making this decision, Huberty confidently told his neighbors, as well as what little family friends they had, "We're going to show them who's boss." And sadly, his confidence would very quickly fade over the next coming few months.
Some bad financial decisions there.
Yes.
I guess having a German voice going off in your head probably would cloud your judgment slightly.
Wouldn't it, Dan?
Bye, hi.
There's nothing wrong with a German voice, particularly.
I'm just saying the voice in general, Dan, but his voice was Was Germany in his head?
Any voice in your head.
Yes, but in this situation, it was
not particularly German.
This situation was German, though, so it's hard to escape it. But I do agree. Any voice.
Chris Eubank Sr. just narrating your day.
I don't think that would
just for
help.
A bit, not constant.
Kill yourself.
Well, that's pretty good, to be fair. When Huberty and his family relocated from a large home in Ohio to a small apartment in Tijuana in October of 1983, he decided to leave most of their belongings in a storage unit up in Ohio, and made sure to take the important things: his large collection of guns, stockpile of ammunition, and his survival gear with him. Reports indicate that, from the start of their arrival in Mexico, Huberty's wife Etna and his two daughters adapted very well to their new surroundings and quickly made friends with their neighbours. However, Huberty, who knew very little Spanish and had absolutely no interest in learning any, remained depressed, bitter, awkward and distant.
Gotta make the effort.
Maybe we should get the tarot cards out of the unit. He started referring to any non-Americans as monkeys and became abrasive with anybody who tried to talk to him. Struggling to find any work in Tijuana and not willing to ask for any help from the locals, Huberty soon started regretting the move to Mexico. He considered the move to be a total disaster. Within just 3 months of doing so, the family packed up their things and moved once again, this time to the village of San Ysidro, a mostly impoverished area of San Diego just north of the Mexico-United States border, referred to at the time as just a place where American tourists frequently stopped for Mexican currency and car insurance on their way to Tijuana. Yeah, so one of those kind of town you drive through and you don't really stop.
Sometimes the best towns.
It always has an interesting population who've decided this is the place for me.
Quirky, nice quirks.
San Ysidro only had a population of roughly 13,000 people in 1984, though this population would be forever changed in the 6 months that would follow. After arriving in San Ysidro, and now desperate to find an income for his family by any means necessary, you'd think that Huberty may have approached the situation with a slightly more positive, enthusiastic and energetic outlook. Unfortunately, this was not the case. He immediately rubbed his neighbours up the wrong way. After moving into a $450 a month apartment complex called Cottonwood Apartments, and was repeatedly verbally and physically aggressive to his wife and daughters in front of stunned onlookers. After spending 3 months in San Ysidro, Huberty was outraged to learn that he and his family appeared to be the only American family living in their complex, and as a result, he was extremely rude and standoffish to his predominantly Mexican neighbours, and would gradually build up a strong resentment for Mexicans in general. Amidst all his anger and hatred towards the world, Huberty saw an advert in a newspaper for a security guard position, with full training being provided. He immediately jumped at the opportunity, completed his basic training, and started guarding local condominiums for the company. However, just 2 months after he started, he was unexpectedly fired from the position, with his employers stating that poor job performance and noticeable physical instability, referencing his slight limp. This placed Huberty under more pressure than he had ever been in before. On top of this, it had placed him in a darker rage than he had ever been in before. His mental state was now rapidly deteriorating, and he no longer felt remorse or any shred of humanity. Huberty was now wanting to make a society that he deemed to be routinely attacking and rejecting him pay for those supposed crimes against him. His plan was simple, and his plan was horrifying. He wanted to end his own life in a manner that would take as many lives as possible with him, and cause as much devastation in the process. And it's here that we move to the timeline of the San Ysidro McDonald's massacre.
Tuesday, July 17th, 1984. Knowing that, perhaps, his mental state was now deteriorating far beyond his control, Huberty informed his wife that he was finally going to actively seek help for the situation he found himself in. After a couple of days of extreme anxiety, he plucked up the courage to contact the San Ysidro Health Centre, where he phoned to ask that somebody see him or speak with him as a matter of urgency. He left his name and contact details and asked that he be booked in for an appointment as soon as possible. According to his wife, he was told he would have a call back within a couple of hours. He then thanked the receptionist, put the phone down, and sat next to the phone waiting for the callback for the next several hours. Against the narrative of the image we have painted of him thus far, Huberty was extremely calm, friendly, and polite over the phone. Shockingly, this did him no favours with regards to what would follow. Number 1. As he was so calm and friendly over the phone, his pleasant demeanour, as well as the fact he had no record of previous mental health conditions, did not raise any immediate concerns, and therefore his call was marked down as non-crisis. Number 2. Unbeknownst to Huberty and his wife, The receptionist who promised him a callback had misspelled his name as Huberty.
Shubity-doobity-hoobity.
Doo-be-doo-doo-doo.
The receptionist who promised him a callback had misspelled his name as Huberty, meaning that his name did not match the contact record they had on file for Huberty. Him being listed as non-crisis actually meant that he would not be contacted for 48 hours, and they did not have the correct contact details for him anyway. These two seemingly small things would ultimately lead to Huberty's fury reaching an all-time high. Hours later, he stormed away from the house and went out on his motorbike. Hours later, he returned and then ate dinner with his daughters and watched the Pink Panther film with his wife, with Etna assuming that he had calmed down. A note worth making is that the family would regularly go out and eat McDonald's together whilst they lived in different parts of America and Mexico, with Huberty apparently being particularly fond of McNuggets. However, the family enjoyed a home-cooked meal that night, and he seemed to be behaving less erratically than he was earlier that day.
So, it's about to get obviously extremely dark. One quick bit of light relief before we get there. I was quite surprised McNuggets were a thing back in the 80s. When do you guys think they were introduced to the menu?
I think it'd be 65.
Wow.
73.
Wow. They were introduced to select menus in 1981. So they were quite a new thing during Huberty's time. They were apparently conceived, the idea of McNuggets, in the late 1970s. But yeah, 1981 this
The way
time.
you set that up suggested it was going to be really, really early.
He basically set up saying, like, I was right because I thought they probably came around at that time.
I've
then
been
you did.
told maybe I should get into poker. So,
I think you'd be lost.
yeah, I don't know how the game works.
Yeah.
Or maybe that's my poker mouth talking. Yeah, 1981,
Wow.
Chicken McNuggets.
1981.
There you
Of
go.
the Christmas chats.
The more you know.
Wednesday, July 18th, 1984, San Ysidro, California. The following morning, on a day that would change so many people's lives forever, 41-year-old James Huberty took his wife and daughters to the San Diego Zoo. Whilst at the zoo, he was incredibly withdrawn and quiet. As his daughters excitedly explored different enclosures, Huberty turned to his wife and started complaining that the health centre still had not returned his call. He reiterated his belief that his life was now over, and he chillingly told Etna, well, society had their chance.
Got some light relief.
Yeah, go on, yeah.
When do you think burgers were made?
Bloody hell.
I'll cheer everyone up.
France.
The first burger ever. Or do you
Yeah.
mean McDonald's burger?
First ever Happy Meal.
Oh,
I feel I should know this one.
1922.
Happy Meal.
Oh, Happy Meal.
He had.
I thought it was McDonald's burger, sorry. Happy Meal, 1988.
Danny boy.
Late 60s.
See, I would have said that they probably would have launched it nationwide in about 1979, but it's actually 1979.
Wow.
Yeah, I should play cards.
Crazy, man. You should play cards.
Back to the case.
Fantastic.
So yeah, the Hubertys had been at the San Diego Zoo, and on their way home from the zoo, Huberty and his family stopped at a McDonald's in the Claremont neighborhood, where they had lunch before quietly returning home. Was it whilst at this particular McDonald's that Huberty landed on the final elements or motivations of his terrifying plan? Once the family arrived back at their apartment, his daughters started watching television whilst his wife went to the bedroom to lay down. Huberty then got changed into an outfit consisting of a now infamous green pair of camouflage trousers and a dark maroon t-shirt. He then stepped into the bedroom, leant towards his wife, and quietly said, "I want to kiss you goodbye." The pair then kissed before Etna asked him where he was going and what time he would be back home in order for her to prepare dinner. He calmly stated, "I am going hunting for humans." He then allegedly grinned, gave her 2 thumbs up, and then left the room. That would go on to mark the final time that Etna ever saw her husband alive. Huberty then collected his guns and ammunition, wrapped them in a checkered blanket, and headed towards the front door, before turning towards his eldest daughter, Zelia, and saying, "Goodbye, I won't be back." Despite all of these incredibly chilling final words to his family, nobody tried to stop him, nobody went after him, and no emergency services were contacted. At around 10 minutes to 4 that afternoon, Huberty then placed the weapons and ammunition into his black Mercury Marquis sedan before quickly driving away from the family home. Apparently, one eyewitness saw him driving towards a large supermarket before he then headed towards a local post office. After seemingly choosing his final target, he then circled back and slowly parked up in the car park of the San Ysidro McDonald's. And yeah, this location was actually just 200 yards or 180 meters away from his family's apartment. He was carrying a 9mm Browning HP semi-automatic pistol, a 9mm Uzi carbine, and a Winchester 1200 12-gauge pump-action shotgun. And as well as all of that, he was also carrying hundreds of rounds of ammunition for each of the weapons. As he left his car and was walking along San Ysidro Boulevard with his multiple guns clearly visible, a bystander witnessed him and immediately contacted the police. However, this individual mistakenly provided the incorrect address. And so Huberty continued walking unobstructed. At this point in time, between 45 and 50 staff members and customers were present inside the restaurant. A large amount of them were teenagers and young children, with many more making their way towards the restaurant from outside. At just before 4 p.m, Huberty made his way inside the restaurant, shotgun in hand, where he immediately screamed for everybody to get down on the ground. Right after he did this, he began firing his Winchester indiscriminately into a stunned and mortified crowd of people within the McDonald's restaurant. Predominantly, he was shooting towards those who had already started to lie down. The few survivors from that day overheard him referring to those now running and hiding for their lives as, quote, dirty swine and Vietnam assholes, with Huberty apparently stating, "I've killed thousands, now I'll kill thousands more." Parents rushed to cover their babies, loved ones rushed to cover one another, people hid under tables, children started screaming, and dozens of people tried to flee the restaurant by any means that they could. And this was only the first of 77 minutes in which James Oliver Huberty would truly bring hell to the people of San Ysidro. He brought carnage and mayhem, the likes of which they couldn't possibly have imagined in their worst nightmares.
Another slightly different perspective of this starting point of the massacre was that of Guillermo Flores, the assistant manager of the McDonald's, who claimed that he observed Huberty enter the restaurant and first point his shotgun towards a 16-year-old employee called John Arnold. He warned John, "Hey, that guy is going to shoot you," as Huberty pulled the trigger. The shot would not fire, and many believed it to be a distasteful joke. Whilst Huberty apparently inspected the gun, the rest of the restaurant went about their day. However, Huberty then pulled an Uzi out of his bag and fired a shot directly beneath the eye of 22-year-old Neva Kane, who was the manager of the restaurant, killing her almost instantly. Huberty would then spray bullets around the building, shooting people who lay on the floor multiple times to ensure that they were dead. He gunned down entire families who were hiding in terror beneath the tables, shooting through many parents in order to strike their young children and babies. A 25-year-old man named Victor Rivera noticed that Huberty was ranting during the shooting, so he bravely decided to try and calm him down and persuade him to not shoot anyone else. Huberty simply turned to Victor and shot him 14 times before shouting, "Shut up," as Victor screamed in agony. Victor would pass away soon after this as a result of extensive blood loss from gunshot injuries. Unable to move past the shooter without the risk of being killed, many customers tried to hide under tables and behind the service booths, but there were so few hiding spots available due to the large crowd in the restaurant. Huberty noticed 6 women and children huddling together in fear and aimed his gun at 19-year-old Maria Colmenero, shooting her in the chest. He then repeatedly shot 9-year-old Claudia Perez, killing her immediately. She was struck in the stomach, cheek, thigh, hip, leg, chest, back, and her armpit. After this, he shot and injured Claudia's 15-year-old sister, Imelda, striking her in the chest. He also shot 11-year-old Aurora Pina, wounding her in the leg. She had been protected by her 18-year-old pregnant aunt, Jackie Reyes, who was shot 48 times before she and her unborn baby passed away. Next to his mother's now lifeless body, 8-month-old Carlos Reyes sat up crying. Huberty screamed and aimed the gun at the baby's back, firing and killing him instantly. One witness, Rafael Meza, who worked at a supermarket across the street, recorded the following.
Somebody was shooting at me with a pistol. Then all the windows started breaking. I hid behind a truck. There were bullets flying everywhere. Everybody was screaming and running around. They were just running for their lives. You could see people getting shot and falling down, just like in a shooting gallery that you couldn't get out of, just like in the movies.
Huberty then killed Lawrence Louis, a 62-year-old truck driver, before targeting the family in the outdoor adjacent play area who were trying to shield their children under the tables. 31-year-old Blythe Regan Herrera was attempting to protect her 11-year-old son, Mateo, under one booth, whilst her husband Ronald was trying to shield 12-year-old Keith Thomas under the booth opposite them. Huberty started shooting at the people sitting at the tables, who had nowhere to escape and were paralysed with fear. As he approached those hiding under the tables, Ronald urged Keith to stay still, covering the boy with his body. Keith was shot in the shoulder, arm, wrist and left elbow, but was not seriously hurt. Ronald was shot 8 times in the stomach, chest, arm and head but survived. Unfortunately, Ronald's wife Blythe and son Mateo were killed by multiple gunshots to the head.
Yeah, I mean, this is a scene of absolute mayhem, and he decided to do this because he hated the world and decided that all these people deserved this. My immediate question was, why the fuck would a civilian need an Uzi?
Yeah.
Or a, pump action shotgun for that matter. One of the first things I saw when researching this case, and I don't know how we obviously upload all of these for the audio folks. We upload all of these episodes to YouTube and have done for some years, and how hard it is to get true crime content on YouTube. There is one of the biggest videos on YouTube about this case is just called San Ysidro McDonald's Massacre crime scene. And so I clicked it thinking, it might be some, images of the restaurant and stuff like that. It's literally, you see babies with gunshot wounds, you see children with gunshot wounds, you see the perpetrator face down, with a gunshot wound. I cannot imagine, McDonald's, especially when we were kids, I don't know, Dan, how often you were taken to them, but they were just a fun, safe place to be with your family. And they are especially, obviously, kid-friendly restaurants, and they're targeting kids with, I don't know, I can't imagine the reaction to that situation. A place where you're just out for a meal with your children, with your friends, with your family, and then for something like this to happen, there's no escape apart from the main door, which it seems like he stood in front of for a large period of time. And it's just, this, as I said at the start, this and Sandy Hook are by far the two most difficult cases I think we've had to research, especially that scene there of the 8-month-old.
Over the next hour, Huberty would randomly fire more than 257 rounds at anything that moved both inside and outside a McDonald's restaurant that was very popular with Mexican and American locals. He intentionally shut up windows that he was able to fire his weapons outside. Some would hide, some would play dead, and some would simply beg for their lives. None of this seemed to matter to Huberty, who continued to spray bullets without prejudice into dozens of parents, young adults, teenagers, children, and babies. Just minutes after the massacre started, the first of a series of 911 calls were made. However, call handlers accidentally dispatched officers to a McDonald's that was 2 miles away from the active shooting taking place. During that time, even more lives were ended at the hands of Huberty, and the street was not locked down until many minutes later, whilst the general public outside would still approach the restaurant and drive through, not knowing that a massacre was taking place inside the building. It was terrible. If anybody moved, he just shot them.
I just don't understand how... actually, maybe I shouldn't get into the politics of it, because the last time I did that, I got jumped on. But in situations like these, it's like, I would like to speak to someone who is pro-gun, respectfully, because I do respect other people's opinions, but what is the justification in that situation? Is it to add more guns so everybody can defend themselves? The description above, spraying an Uzi.
Yeah.
The fact that somebody essentially has the right to spray an Uzi in, like you said, Ben, a family-friendly, primarily young person's restaurant, is just abhorrent. And I will never understand the argument for guns. And I'm really sorry. I don't want to get political. And this may get cut in the edit because of what happened last time, but I just don't understand it. And I would like to speak to someone about it, really, who is pro-gun.
And just to say, we only ever get political when we think it's relevant to the case. And I know some people have said they don't like it when we get political, but we only do it if it actually adds to this. It's a part of the actual topic. So we're not a political podcast by any stretch, but when it is relevant, it is relevant.
Well, yeah, that's it. And I think this case specifically, there had been mass shootings and massacres prior to this, and there have been many since. But I think the fact that this one involved so many young people and children, and it was at a McDonald's, it always seems to be the case of there'll be protests, there'll be politicians making their, letting it suit their agenda in whichever, belief that they hold on the matter. And I think it just seems to be a repeat cycle. Obviously, gun laws have changed since this incident, and I don't imagine it would be as easy to get your hands on an Uzi in America. Could be wrong. But yeah, just the idea of a McDonald's, which especially in the 80s, the 90s, they look so different to what they do now. A place where children are happy, a place where children are safe, and then a place where a lone man. And I think even we kind of found it a bit funny that the receptionist mispronounced, wrote his name down as Huberty instead of Huberty, and there were these other things where people would dispatch to the wrong place. I think it still would have happened without that callback. With Huberty, I feel like that clock was ticking and ticking fast.
Right. It's tricky, isn't it? Because if there's proper intervention in place, and if it was a case of medication, he would need to be medicated. It's hard to say, isn't it? It does feel like he's always been on the edge of something drastic happening, but I just such an innocent mistake, and that person, I'm sure, would have found it very hard to kind of deal with that in their own mind about that simple little mistake, that simple little error, and what it led to.
Yeah, it just seems to be at different stages in his life. Losing jobs is a big thing for him, which it is for anyone, but there are ways to react and respond to that do not involve killing dozens of people. But yeah, just absolutely harrowing. And yeah, I wouldn't, even for people that are curious about kind of like gore sites or just what this scene looked like, I highly just suggest not to look at that video that is somehow on YouTube, because it stays with you. It's horrible.
4:07 p.m. Several minutes after the first bullet was fired, Officer Miguel Rosario arrived at the scene, initially thinking that somehow the incident was accidental. He then saw Huberty come outside the McDonald's with a Uzi in his hand. Huberty immediately opened fire on the officer, breaking the car's windscreen and emergency lights, forcing Officer Rosario to take cover behind a parked pickup truck. Rosario chose not to return fire, suspecting that Huberty had accomplices who would support him. Therefore, he called for a Code 10 to request SWAT, followed by a Code 11 to send in everybody. When SWAT arrived a few minutes later, Huberty ran back into the restaurant, leading to an intense standoff. 6 blocks around the McDonald's were closed off as a result. The officers prepared with special equipment from their squad cars, while news reporter Monica Zek infamously covered the unfolding events from a live TV from a small helicopter flying above. As Huberty was shooting rapidly and had switched between different guns, the police didn't know how many shooters were in the restaurant. As well as this, since many of the restaurant's windows were broken by bullets, reflections from the glass made it harder for the police to see inside. At around 4:10 p.m, Astolfo and Maricela Felix were driving to a service area of the restaurant when they saw the broken windows of the building. Astolfo thought that the restaurant was being renovated, and when he spotted Huberty approaching, he assumed he was a repairman. Huberty then opened fire on the couple and their 4-month-old daughter, Carlita, with an Uzi and a shotgun. Maricela was shot in the face, arms and chest, which blinded her in one eye and left one hand permanently damaged. The baby suffered critical injuries to her neck, chest and abdomen. Astolfo was also shot in the chest and head. As they tried to escape to safety, Maricela handed her daughter to a young woman named Lucia Velasco, asking her to take the baby to hospital. Maricela then collapsed against a car, and Astolfo assisted in moving her to a nearby building. Fortunately, all 3 members of the Felix family survived. Meanwhile, multiple survivors later recounted seeing Huberty approach the service counter and fiddle with a portable radio, likely trying to find news updates about his shooting rampage, before tuning into a music station and continuing to shoot people while dancing to the tunes. Huberty then checked the kitchen area, finding 6 employees and yelling, "Oh, there's more. You're trying to hide from me, you bastards." At the same time, 3 local 11-year-old boys were riding their BMX bikes into the west parking lot of McDonald's, just like they had done many times before. They heard someone shouting something unclear towards them from across the street. All 3 hesitated, and out of nowhere, Huberty suddenly shot at the boys with his shotgun and Uzi. One boy, Joshua Coleman, fell critically injured in the back, arm and leg. He later remembered looking over his friends, Omar Alonso Hernandez and David Flores Delgado. He saw Omar on the ground with multiple gunshot wounds to his back, starting to vomit, while Delgado had several gunshot wounds to his head and was completely motionless. Coleman survived, but Hernandez and Delgado both died at the scene. Heading back to the restaurant, Huberty then noticed an elderly couple, 74-year-old Miguel Aloa and 69-year-old Ada Victoria, walking towards the entrance. As Miguel reached to open the door for Ada, Huberty fired his shotgun, killing Ada with a shot to the face and injuring Miguel. 2 survivors, Oscar Mondragon and Maria Sevilla, later reported seeing Miguel holding his wife in arms, wiping blood from her face and swearing at Huberty. Huberty then slowly approached the doorway, swore back at Miguel before shooting him in the head.
Yeah, it's just absolutely relentless, this case. And I note, for those that haven't heard us discuss this before, one thing that came up recently is perspectives, and how when we're talking about these cases and telling these stories, producer Dan has a very interesting perspective on where he puts himself whilst we describe things. Are you placing yourself in first person in the restaurant, or what are you seeing and feeling at this point in time?
I mean, that paragraph I just finished, I was in Miguel's point of view. That is
terrifying, because I've unfortunately watched the video of the crime scene, and I'm sort of, as we're going through it, I'm picturing myself in different parts of the restaurant. I'm outside the restaurant, police perspective, inside restaurant perspective, staff perspective. It's just an all in all. There's no, as we said, there's no prejudice in what he's doing. He's not targeting any specific people. It's just anyone that's in his way, anyone that's within his sight is a target, because he's had enough. And it's just, yeah, it's just an extremely bleak case.
Yeah.
Eventually, one individual who managed to escape the building informed the surrounding police officers and SWAT team members that it was in fact just one lone shooter, and that it was not a hostage situation. Because, yeah, whilst all this was going on, and there was sounds of, rapid machine gun fire, shotgun fire, pistol, handgun fire, people potentially thought there were multiple shooters within the McDonald's, and it was a controlled team act. And that maybe people were being held hostage in return for financial gain. It wasn't the case. It was one lone shooter who was not keeping people hostage. In fact, he was doing the opposite. So they're now aware that it's just one person, and they have the target now sighted. At 5:05 p.m, roughly 65 minutes after the first shots have been fired, all responders were given the authorization to kill the shooter should they obtain a clear shot. At 5:17 p.m, 77 horrifying minutes after James Huberty had started firing into a terrified general public, a 27-year-old police SWAT sniper named Charles Foster watched as the shooter moved from the service counter to the doorway near the drive-in window of the restaurant. Foster took a shot from about 35 yards away, or 32 meters, and the bullet hit Huberty in the chest, cutting through his aorta just below his heart and exited through his spine, creating a 1 square inch exit wound. This impact caused Huberty to fall backwards onto the floor right in front of the service counter, killing him almost immediately. The massacre was finally over. Even though Huberty was clearly dead, an officer who entered the McDonald's just to be safe flipped his body over and handcuffed his hands behind his back after having asked a survivor if this was the individual responsible for the shooting. The 22 victims of the San Ysidro massacre were Carlos Reyes, 8 months, Claudia Perez, 9 years old, Mateo Herrera, 11 years old, David Flores Delgado, 11 years old, Omar Alonso Hernandez, 11 years old, Michelle Diane Carncross, 18 years old, Margarita Padilla, who worked at the McDonald's, 18 years old, Jackie Lynn Wright Reyes, 18 years old, and her unborn child, Elsa Halinda Baboa Fierro, who worked at the McDonald's, 19 years old, Maria Elena Colmero Silva, 19 years old, Jose Ruben Lozano Perez, 19 years old, Paulina Aquino Lopez, who was an employee at the McDonald's, 21 years old, Neva Denise Kane, who worked at the McDonald's, 22 years old, Gloria Lopez Gonzalez, 22 years old, Victor Maximilian Rivera, 25 years old, Blythe Regan Herrera, 31 years old, Aristelzi Vuelas Vargas, 31 years old, Hugo Luis Velázquez Vasquez, 45 years old, Lawrence Gus Herman Vasulis, 62 years old, Ada Velázquez Victoria, 69 years old, and Miguel Victoria Ulloa, 74 years old. Officer Velázquez, who was one of the first detectives to arrive, said the following about his first observations of the scene.
The suspect was firing everywhere, at anything that moved. I saw bodies lying outside, adults and children. Some were still alive. I sadly witnessed him killing a man laying next to his wife who had already been shot at. Some of the dead and wounded were said to be children in a McDonald's playground next to the restaurant. 17 of the bodies, including the assailants, were inside the restaurant and 4 were outside.
So, yeah, I know we said as we entered the timeline there were between 45 to 50 employees and customers in and around the restaurant at the time that the shooting started. Only 10 of them were able to flee the scene completely unharmed, 6 of whom had actually taken refuge in the basement utility room. The other 4 were just extremely fortunate and were actually in the restaurant or around the restaurant at the time. One of the survivors, I saw an interview with them, one of the survivors that basically hid in the basement said that they had survivor's guilt for decades after this, stating that they felt guilty for hiding, they felt guilty for staying, down in the basement, and that they wish they had the bravery to go and try and overpower Huberty. But obviously, one individual had already tried to kind of talk him down. There were other people that tried to approach him, and they all unfortunately met the same fate. So it's just, absolutely tragic. As always, we did a Google Street View of the location. It's since been demolished. There is a new McDonald's just a block away from where this McDonald's once was. But yeah, there's now different buildings on there. There's a university building and a donut shop there now. July 19th, 1984, the day following the massacre, whilst America was still in mourning and the San Ysidro community was still reeling, numerous reporters went to see James Huberty's father in Mount Eaton, Ohio, in order to gather more details about his son, the man behind the McDonald's massacre. After talking about his son's upbringing and the family's strong religious beliefs, Earl Huberty pointed at a painting of a lost sheep on his wall and started to cry, telling reporters, "Yesterday was the worst day of my life. I feel so sorry for those people." Meanwhile, McDonald's pulled all of its television and radio advertising in the days that followed in order to prevent any kind of reminder of the incident. And Burger King, long-standing rival of McDonald's, also did the same.
July 23rd, 1984. 5 days after the massacre, James Huberty's body was cremated, with his ashes being provided to his wife and family back in Ohio. Because of the large number of victims, local funeral homes had to use the San Ysidro Civic Centre to hold the wakes for each victim. The local parish Mount Carmel Church was forced to hold back-to-back funeral masses in order that each of the dead could be buried in a timely manner. In the weeks following the massacre, Huberty's wife and daughters received numerous death threats, forcing them to temporarily reside with a family friend. All 3 would attend counselling sessions for over 9 months. Etna, Huberty and her daughters initially relocated from San Ysidro to Hula Vista, where Zelia and Cassandra enrolled in school under assumed names. A survivors fund was also launched, with a portion of the proceeds controversially being provided to Edna Huberty and her daughters. The total donations received $1.4 million, with $1 million coming from McDonald's. A monument was later created to honour the victims, which is quite striking to look at. It consists of 21 hexagonal white marble pillars and is located at 460 West San Ysidro Boulevard. 2 years later, in July of 1986, Edna Huberty boldly filed a lawsuit against McDonald's and her husband's previous employer, Babcock and Wilcox. The civil case was seeking around $5 million in damages. She claimed that her husband's murder spree was caused by a mixture of an unhealthy diet, mainly made of McDonald's McNuggets, and many years of working with high toxic metals without proper safety measures. It was later, unsurprisingly, thrown out.
We'll pop some photos up for you of the actual newspaper articles at the time, but yeah, she was literally specifically blamed McNuggets, which is why we kind of honed in on the McNugget chat. But yeah, basically it was, and she'd lived with him for all those years. She'd been a victim of his in terms of the domestic abuse, and instead of all that she knew about her husband and the things that he had said, apparently it was the McDonald's diet and the work environment that caused him to do what he did. From her side of things.
Yeah, I'm not surprised that was thrown out.
Yeah. It's always the case with different individuals we've covered over the years. It's just there's so much preventability about these things. Saying that, there are probably so many other people out there that have experienced things like what James Huberty experienced and never went on to do what he did, and like Tom mentioned, hopefully received appropriate care and support and didn't go ahead with their plans. But I mean, at the rate that mass shootings occur at this day and age, nothing's really changed.
Yeah, it's a tricky one, isn't it? Because I mean, people will have different difficulties and different things that, they react to in different ways, and undiagnosed mental instabilities and things like that, if they're not treated properly, it can spiral. And as we said before, spiraling whilst heavily armed is an extremely dangerous situation for anyone to be in and people surrounding to be in. And of course, I'm not taking any blame from Huberty's doorstep there at all. Like, it's a whole heap of different things. The police acted earlier on, or took him killing a dog or shooting guns seriously early on, then a lot of this wouldn't have happened. That woman making the mistake about the name, it's an innocent mistake. Going to the wrong McDonald's when the shooting was happening could have helped save some lives. A lot of innocent mistakes within there, but yeah, I think it all kind of stemmed from the early stages of him using guns and weapons, his neighbours seeing him, and then that not being taken as seriously as it should be.
Definitely. I mean, I mentioned it. I can't remember what the last episode we covered, maybe a previous series 11. It was a mass shooting case that we covered, and I mentioned the mass shooting tracker website, and I've just out of curiosity clicked it now. It's been 1 day since the last mass shooting in America. At the time of recording, there were 2 yesterday, one in Nashville, one in Fort Worth, Texas. There have been 392 this year. We still have October, November, December to get through, and there have been since I guess this website was launched in 2013, since the 1st of January 2013, 6,924 mass shootings.
Yeah, that is
unreal.
And I don't know how often it's updated in terms of like real time, but it's just, to know that there were literally 2 yesterday. Yeah.
On the morning of August 20th, 1986, the following month, in a quiet suburb of the city of Edmond, Oklahoma, 44-year-old part-time postal worker Patrick Sherrill entered the local post office where he was employed. Heavily armed and filled with rage, and opened fire on his colleagues, resulting in 14 deaths and 6 serious injuries before he made the decision to take his own life. The massacre further stunned the nation not only due to its brutality, but also because of its location, a seemingly ordinary government workplace, far from any scene of typical violence. Sherrill, who was reportedly facing a possible dismissal and had a history of erratic behaviour, unleashed a level of violence that would become one of the deadliest workplace shootings in American history. In the years that followed, a series of similar violent events involving postal workers led to the coining of the term "going postal," a phrase used to describe sudden, explosive workplace violence. Although it quickly became part of popular culture, the term has since sparked controversy, criticised for trivialising trauma, reinforcing negative stereotypes about postal workers, and stigmatising mental health issues. Though they are not directly linked, this particular case is often compared to the San Ysidro McDonald's massacre due to a large number of similarities. Both were committed by socially isolated middle-aged white men, described by others as troubled, angry or withdrawn. Both men had histories of grievances, paranoia and mental health struggles. Both were committed in locations that had previously been considered safe. Both occurred after a series of significant threats and warning signs, and both quickly became reference points in discussions around gun violence, mental health, and public safety in America. October 16th, 1991, 7 years after the McDonald's massacre, a 35-year-old man named George Pierre Hennard committed a massacre that was highly similar to that of Huberty's. He opened fire inside a busy Luby's restaurant in the city of Killeen, Texas, with 2 semi-automatic pistols, killing 23 and injuring 20 others. According to a True TV article mentioning him, Hennard was actually motivated to carry out his crimes after watching a documentary about James Huberty. It is also possible that Huberty's massacre influenced the Port Arthur massacre in Australia, carried out by Martin Bryant, but this has never been verified.
Because I'd not been to America a few times, never heard of Luby's, and I've just Googled it, and it's got a very child-friendly vibe, and its slogan is "Tastes like Texas, feels like home." Looks nice, but yeah, it's very, all the menu colours and the cartoons and stuff. Immediately, I mean, I might be wrong, it might be not a family restaurant, but it just, horrible similarities to this case. We get it a lot. I saw it actually because we just done the audience vote, and interestingly, a lot of people requested this case, which was going to be the finale for the series, but people tend to have a particular fascination with mass shootings or spree killings when they occur. And the main theme seems to be individuals that express numerous warning signs throughout different periods of either their childhood, adolescence, or adult life. And there's so much preventability in these things, and that mass shooting tracker website, that they're happening every day, man. Heavy one, heavy case, boys. Very, very heavy.
I often say in some cases, it staggers you when you haven't heard too much about it, and how, big it was, and how many lives were lost, and how, truly heartbreaking the case is. I mean, the list of the victims there and the ages were truly, heartbreaking to hear. Yeah, and the sad thing is, like you said, is over, close to 400 mass shootings already occurred in America, and how many of that have we actually heard about? Yeah, it truly is a very sad state of affairs. Alright guys, so a little bit of light relief. I haven't got any, but the guys have a little lookalike for this week's episode, so if either of you are ready to take it away with a little lookalike.
Dan, can I just say, before we do this, I feel like, because you just said yours is rubbish, I feel like ours are going to be the same person.
I wouldn't be so sure, because mine are always very rogue. Well, so, but I'd love to see yours first and see what happens, perhaps.
Okay. Well, I've gone for kind of a combination of two people that are related very much so, and that is that I get from that very creepy picture of Huberty, just get very fear and loathing vibes, but he's no Johnny Depp by any stretch. So I actually ended up going, instead of Johnny Depp in Fear and Loathing Las Vegas, I've gone with the writer, Hunter S. Thompson. I'm very sorry, Hunter, but it gives more Hunter than Depp vibes. Could be just the glasses.
That's a lot of heavy lifting, but still, it's quite good.
Thank you.
Quite.
Yep, thank you. Still will take quite.
And I can't really explain mine. It's just the first person that I saw when I pulled up his photograph, and it was...
I've got one now.
Oh,
James Spader, who was in The Office, the American Office.
Oh, yeah, okay. Loved his character.
Something in the eyes, something in the smile.
That's not bad, Dan.
There you go, that's mine.
It's not bad.
Thanks, Ben.
You're welcome.
Not a great shout either, to be fair.
He's going to knock out of the park.
In Scary Movie 2, it's David Cross from Scary Movie 2, who... It's a terrible shout, but it's just the hair, really, and the glasses.
It works. Just about.
Yeah, no, it's a terrible shot. It's literally just the hair.
Can I ask you boys, there's another, you obviously used the same image of Huberty there, but there's this other image of him when he was a bit younger. I've popped it there for you. That, I was scratching my head for a while, because that really looks like someone, and maybe the guy's playing at home, he looks, not Michael Cera, but I don't know, there's something going on with that. I've recognized that face from somewhere else massively, or I'm getting deja vu or whatever, but I can't think of who.
The first person I thought of was James Acaster.
Oh, poor old James.
I think I got something for that, Ben.
Yeah.
Andrew Daly, who's in Eastbound and Down.
Great show.
The Principal.
Yeah, that's not bad.
Good.
That's not bad.
Good, yeah.
My brother said there's a sort of slight Jeffrey Dahmer vibe about it, but I didn't see that. But Andrew Daly's a good shout.
The glasses. But yes, yeah, it's particularly heavy case. And obviously next week it is the finale. And it's the first time we've ever done this. It is the finale that's been picked by you guys, our lovely audience. So most people would have probably seen the result of the audience vote, though we don't actually post about who wins, do we? Tend to. So
we don't. Anyone that was following the poll, it was neck and neck for a bit, and then it went loopy. But yeah, really interesting case to finish the series on, and one that's also, every time we do an audience vote, there's like a dozen people that vote for every time. So hopefully those people will be, tuning in. Yeah, this was going to be the finale, wasn't it? I feel absolutely emotionally drained from this case. Bit of a murder mystery next week, or is it?
There you go. But yes, guys, thank you so much for your support. It's very much appreciated. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing to us. So either where you listen to us, or if you're watching us over on YouTube, we are on our mission to try and get to 100,000 subs over here on YouTube. And keep your eyes peeled on your socials, because we've got a couple cheeky little collaborations coming up, which we're very excited about. So yes, keep an eye out for them.
And if you just can't wait until next week's series finale, bloody hell, then why not consider going over to our website, icmap.co.uk, where we, at the time of recording, have like nearly 250 bonus episodes. You can also listen to them on Apple Podcasts. You can also watch them via Spotify, or listen to them there. And recently, Dan and I covered Katy Perry and the Death of a Nun, which was bizarre and very different to this week's case. Bizarre. But loads of other cases. We do requests over there, and it's literally less than the price of a coffee for a whole month. And I think Dan does this mental fucking deal where you can join for a week for free and then just leave and not pay.
Oh, sorry. There's no turning back now. That offer is on for good. So sorry, boys.
Mad, Tom, isn't it?
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. But there you go. But yes, guys, thank you so much for watching, listening, and sharing us with your pals. But like we always say,
we say this all the time. Robot. By the Robocop.
But like a welder. Keep doing what you're doing.
Oh, well, unless. Just blaming McNuggets for your awful subhuman actions. Yeah. Building a firing range in your basement.
Don't let your dog defecate on a lawn, to be fair.
Wow.
It's true. Because it was annoying.
If you've got loads of cash, put it somewhere fire resistant. You don't have to put it in a bank, but go fireproof safe.
If you haven't played a game of squash, get out there, play a game of squash.
Warm that ball up.
Let's go, baby.
Let's go. See you guys.
Bye-bye.
See you, Pip.